Hey y'all, I'm Daniel and this is Deacon Outdoors. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Just finishing up some primers. I'm getting ready to load up some more 7mm 08 rounds for load development, and I've got a little bit of different stuff that I'm doing with this batch, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So what I've done on these here, I've got 20 rounds loaded up here with the 150 grain Sierra Game Kings. They're tipped boat tail, and the last time I went to the range, I had the data of 43.5 grains right there with the lower SD and extreme spread, and then the 44 grain with that SD and extreme spread. So all of those rounds that I shot on these targets were seated at 10 thousandths jump to the lands. So now that I've got two areas where I've got those low numbers, I'm going to play with seating depth and see if I can get the accuracy out of them. Let me get set up here to dump some powder and I'll be right back. All right guys, so I got turned around here to start charging the cases, and I ordered a scale that measures in hundredths of a grain, so 0.00, and it is unbelievable at how accurate this thing is. I was loading some up yesterday. The ones I got here, these are all loaded at the 43.5 grain, and I only loaded them to 43, thinking that I was doing 43 and 43.5. So I loaded them to 43, got ready to seat bullets, and realized that I only charged them to 43. So I went back and measured out a half a grain, added it to these cases, and figured out that 18 kernels of the H4350 stick powder is a half a grain. So that is pretty phenomenal, knowing what an actual grain of powder looks like. So imagine just 18 of these little kernels is a half a grain, and how much difference that makes in your velocity whenever you do 1/10 of a grain increments. That basically you're not even using 2 sticks of powder difference in a 1/10, or 3 sticks, something like that, 3 kernels, if you will. But these 20 I'm going to load up at 44. Now what I did on these was, the first round I loaded up was 10 thousandths from the lands. So what I did with these is I did 5 thousandths difference. So I loaded these up, seated them at 15 thousandths off, 20, 25, and 30 thousandths off the lands. So I'm going to see how that affects the accuracy at 43.5 grains and at 44. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the powder on these, and I'll be back with you. So I do want you guys to see this as I'm trickling with this scale and how sensitive it really is. So I'm going to just drop a grain at a time. Now, me breathing is what's affecting it right now, jumping around. Once it settles down, plus our air conditioner's running, and I feel like that's part of it too, but I think it's settled. I mean, you can't hardly even touch the workbench, but I'm going to trickle this up to 44 grains. So I'm going to drop a kernel at a time, and see the difference. There was 2 kernels. There was a kernel. That was 1 kernel, and I hit my 44. So it's pretty awesome to watch that whenever you're going by hundredths of a grain. All right, guys, so I got my brass charged with 44 grains of powder. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on seeding the bullets. Now, I've mentioned it before, but this is the first time I've used an actual micrometer die, and the accuracy of that is tremendous. I didn't know how well it would work, but I used my quantity comparator on each one of the first 20 that I loaded, and they were spot on 10 thousandths interval every time. So I'm gonna seat my first one. This one should be, if I remember where I had it at on the first 20, I think this one will be 2.845, which is my chamber for the lands. So if I seat that one in, I should be yeah. So I need to, so what I'll do is I'll turn this to 15 thousandths because I've already seated 10. So I want to move that ogive to the lands farther away so the gap gets more open, so it has more to jump. Plus, by giving more space between the ogive and the lands also reduces the pressure buildup in the chamber itself. So this one should be what did I have it set at? I don't know why I'm measuring overall. I need to go. So 2.244. I'm going to use that as the comparison to the first rounds, which I loaded was 2.38 on the comparator. And this one is measuring out, let me bump it again. Sometimes whenever you take this thing out and back in, it kind of messes with it just a little bit. So I'm still not where I'm at on the first ones. So I think I'm going to have to, yeah, see, whenever I set this die up yesterday, I set it up based off of my modified case. This is the one I measured the lands with. I set my die accordingly, and then I pulled the micrometer dial off and zeroed it. But I run all my new brass through the sizer just to be 100% sure that it's sized to what I'm using. Not that it's not fine being brand new brass, but I just like the peace of mind of knowing that I ran it through my sizer. So I had to take this out. So I believe that's got my dial off, which I'm not going to worry about because I know where I'm at and I can adjust accordingly. So I need to drop it down 38. So I need to go 7 thousandths. So let's go down. There's 7. All right, so that's where we're at. So I'll just show you real quick what I'm looking at here. So there is the ones I did yesterday, 2.238. And this one, based off my measurement off the die, it lined up at 2.237 and a half. So I'm right where I need to be. And I can go ahead and seat these. These will be the longest ones, and then I'll go another 5 thousandths in depth. Yeah, bingo, 2.3238. So this micrometer die is completely a game changer for me because I've never loaded with one. I always just did the overall length based off of the rim to the me-plat, and I thought I was doing good doing that, and I did turn out some pretty accurate rounds that way, but I'm hoping that this improves on that a little bit. So it's just, whenever you get into hand loading yourself, you can mess around with this kind of stuff and you can go as far as you want. But I have learned after listening to one of Hornady's loaders about the differences of case prep when loading. I know a lot of people talk about weight sorting your brass and chamfering the flash hole. They'll go as far as grinding the shoulder on the inside and the outside, and then chamfer on the inside, which that I do recommend because it helps keep the brass from peeling any of the copper off when you do seat it. But they went through so many tests on the advantages of weight sorting and doing all the case prep, and it wasn't, from what they said, it wasn't really enough of a benefit to put the time in to do all of that. And bullet sorting, they would group all the same weight bullets into different piles, and it wasn't enough to worry about. The biggest things is your charge weight, your primer, and your bullet seating and neck tension, and making those adjustments accordingly, changing powders if you find one that's not working right, or the primer. Now, I do know there's several companies that make like 6.5 Creedmoor brass for small rifle primers, and I haven't looked into that or done any research on that. They just mentioned it a little bit, but not really for sure all of the benefits from going to those yet. But I'm going to go ahead and load up the rest of these. And like I said, I'm going to drop them 5 thousandths on each section of 5 bullets. I'm going to shoot groups of 5 tomorrow. And I'll get back on here and show you the results then. See you on the next one.